Combat is terrifying enough. Can you imagine going blind in the middle of it? One of the most celebrated cases of someone going blind in combat involved John L. Warden, the commander of the USS Monitor. Warden was blinded by an ocular blast injury from a Confederate shell exploding outside the observation slit as he watched the battle between the Monitor and the Merrimack. He eventually made a complete recovery. The following is a story about an infantryman who went blind in combat from the forthcoming novel, Soldier for the Union. Nate escorted a soldier with no visible injuries into the surgeon's tent. "This man's gone blind in his right eye," he said. "When did you lose your sight?" Jonathan asked. "During the fight. Bullets were whizzing all around and I suddenly noticed I couldn't see from that eye." "Can you see anything at all?" "Nothing. Everything looks black. That's my aiming eye. How am I going to be able to fire a musket?" The eye appeared completely normal to exam, but the man reported an inability to see even hand motions. Jonathan said, "We need to do a special test of your vision using chloroform. After the test, this kind of thing often improves on its own." As the man stretched out on the operating table, Jonathan said, "Sarah, find Nate, tell him to bring some chloroform, and I'll need a shot glass of whiskey and an eye patch." Jonathan pulled Sarah and Nate aside and issued instructions. "Nate, give him just a bit of chloroform. I want him only lightly asleep. Sarah, as soon as he's out, put the eye patch on his left eye. When you have the eye patched, stop the chloroform and come get me. And keep the whiskey handy." Nate placed the gauze cone and began to drip the chloroform. The man was soon softly snoring. Sarah slipped the eye patch into place. Nate removed the gauze cone. Sarah found Jonathan, and they walked back to the operating table and found the man with his right eyelid cracked open and smacking his lips. "Where's the whiskey?" Jonathan said. "I have it," Sarah said. Jonathan and Nate sat the man up. With him groggy, confused, and not in full possession of his faculties, Jonathan held out the whiskey glass. "Care for a drink?" The man opened his right eye wide and peered at Jonathan, then reached unerringly for the glass and quaffed down the whiskey. "How's your vision now?" Jonathan asked. The soldier hesitated, glanced around, then held his head down. "Seems much better," he muttered. "I think you'll be fine from here on. The blindness shouldn't recur." Nate helped the man off the table and out of the medical tent, then returned to join Jonathan and Sarah. "What on earth was that all about?" Nate said. "Yes, what was that all about?" Sarah said. "Let's just say that the horror of combat can sometimes cause a man's mind to play tricks on him." The concept of functional disease and the term hysteria date from Hippocrates and Galen. Thomas Sydenham and Thomas Willis wrote on the topic in the 17th century, and Pierre Briquet published a treatise in 1859 arguing hysteria was a disorder of the brain, not the uterus. So Civil War physicians were well aware that functional visual loss could occur. They also had to deal with malingering, which was common. Telling functional neurologic disease from malingering is challenging. This story is based on an actual case described in Bleeding Blue and Gray by Ira Ruffkow. Read more about going blind in combat at the Substack Civil War Dispatches. The link is in the description.